But I want to applaud the Biden administration, and on the basis of the engagement I had today with members of the Xi administration, President Xi himself, I want to applaud his willingness to reconcile those differences, people-to-people exchange. The fact he's meeting with the governor of California at the subnational level, I think, is indicative of a thawing.
Why is the governor of California actually in China? I mean, we all know, but let's talk to John about it. Joining me now, my friend John Phillips of the Great John Phillips Show. John, maybe he got lost, but man, I was looking at my map here on my phone and China looks so far away from California. What's going on?
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going back too, because you end up going to China as a politician, and then an hour later you're hungry to go back. So there might be a second trip, Gavin Newsom. Look, this is not good politics for a governor of California internally. Don't forget, it was Nancy Pelosi, of all people, who is a relative hawk on China, who not only went to Taiwan with a delegation of members of Congress to be critical of the communist Chinese government, but she did so expressly against the wishes of President Joe Biden, his Department of State, and literally the entire executive branch. Now, she did that for a bunch of reasons, one of which is there's a significant Chinese population in the state of California that has been victimized in one way or another by this repressive regime. And she knew that if she wasn't tough on China, she'd receive political blowback in her district. Well, Gavin Newsom comes from San Francisco. Those same people that wanted her to go be tough on China are the same people that voted for Gavin Newsom for mayor, lieutenant governor, and then governor. So he's not doing himself any favors in the state of California by going to China and talking about climate change. Why he's doing this is because he wants to look presidential. He wants to look like he's going on these international trips. He's being treated like any foreign head of state would. As a presidential candidate, governors are frequently criticized for not having any experience when it comes to international relations. They're good at state policy, but they don't know about interacting with foreign governments, particularly the superpowers that we're engaged with on a variety of issues. By Gavin Newsom going to China and going to Israel in their time of crisis, what he's trying to do is present himself not as a state politician, not as someone who worries about water policy and deals with Indian tribes and those sorts of things, but as a man who is capable of leading a major nation like the United States. This is all about him positioning himself ahead of Kamala Harris.
And that actually leads me perfectly to this, John. I have a pretty wife, very, very pretty. And when we go out, if I use the restroom or sometimes even while I'm standing right there, there's a guy who's going to tell her she has pretty eyes, and all that stuff's fine. There's no bother. But there's a limit to how far he can take that. If he tells her she has pretty eyes, it's fine. If he reaches over and puts his hand on her rear end, I'm going to knock him out. This is a little forward for Gavin Newsom. Joe Biden's well aware he wants to be president. Going to China acting like you're already running for president, how is that not a bridge too far for the Biden people? Isn't that putting the hand on the small of the back? Isn't that getting a little too forward?
Well, you would think so. However, I've talked to many people who are in the know in these Democratic circles, and I get the same answer every single time I talk to them. The Biden team, the people around Grampy Joe, do not regard Gavin Newsom as a threat. That Gavin Newsom is not going to take Grampy Joe on in a Democratic primary. The person that this is a declaration of war towards is Kamala Harris. What Gavin Newsom is doing is he's positioning himself to be the main alternative if Joe Biden were to have a heart attack and roll a 7, and the Democrats suddenly need a new nominee at the 11th hour. He's essentially running a shadow campaign for the presidency, so he would be up and running the moment that Joe Biden passes away or says he has a medical emergency that will prohibit him from running for office. I hate to use this analogy because we're talking about him and Kamala Harris, but in many ways, those two are working the same corner. They're selling the same product. They have the same strategist, and he has to figure out a way to position himself ahead of her, given the fact that she would be the natural successor to Joe Biden, and the Democratic Party would have tremendous amounts of pressure on it to get behind her as the sitting vice president. He needs to figure out a way, and this is what he's doing with all of these actions, to say, nope, she's not the easiest replacement for Biden. I am. Get behind me.
Yeah. Yeah, she needs him to stay behind her, and I'm confident she is comfortable with him there. John of the John Phillips Show, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you.